So the first trick is to slice this is Chinese cabbage, to slice your Chinese cabbage thin enough so that you can still feel the crunch. It doesn't matter how good your knife skills are, you can just chop it up, or you can use one of those machines. You can get one of these, you can use the ricotta baskets that you get from Coles and Safeway and recycle them. So put it in the basket and then grate some carrots and pop it in. And the easiest way to pickle some vegetables is to put it in a basket, sprinkle in some vinegar. And this is why recipes always give you an estimation, because it's whether they say 2 tablespoons or 3 tablespoons, it doesn't really matter, because you see that when it starts to pickle the vegetable will start to dehydrate a little bit and the juices will drip down anyway. So don't be afraid to put too much vinegar, and don't be afraid to put too much salt, because it will drip down. So the salt will help it suck out all the water from the vegetables. And what does that mean? It means that whatever flavor you have, when you reduce the water content, means that the flavor pops out more. So I'm using a glove here just to squish it down, but if I was home and doing this for my kids, I wouldn't use no gloves, and I let the kids do it, they love it. And you realize that when you do that, you're just making sure that the vinegar is mixing around, but also the salt is really penetrating the vegetables and sucking out all that excess water. So once it sucks out the water, the salt will fall down through the basket with the water. So usually I'll do this for 15 minutes, but unfortunately we don't have the time to sit around and wait for it. And what happens is you can see the water starting to drip already. While that's sitting there, what I would do in the kitchen is to poach chicken. So when I started cooking healthy, I've always been really afraid of poaching chicken, because my mum will always make like a whole chicken for the whole family, and when I moved out, it's very hard to cook for 2 people. So the easiest way to do this is to take a couple of chicken breasts, or 1 if you want, and turn up the heat until it boils, so you see the bubbles rolling. And once that happens, pop your chicken in, turn it down until you see baby bubbles. That's how I explain it to my 8-year-old. So turn it down until you see baby bubbles, and then just leave it there for around 10 minutes. If you're not sure, don't stress about it. Take the chicken out, slice it in half. If it's raw, pop it back in. It's really simple. Okay? I'm really not into like following recipes to the T, because you might get a chicken breast that's bigger than mine, or you might get a chicken breast that's smaller than mine. So use your instinct, have a look at it, touch the food, and that's it. So pretend this has been sitting there for 15 minutes. So what you would do is take the coleslaw, put it in a large bowl to mix, and then you'll put some of your chicken, but not all of it. And then you're going to put in the shallots. Now the shallots, if you're cooking French salads, you usually can start the coleslaw altogether, but in Vietnamese culture we like the shallots to stay crunchy, so we don't pickle them, we put them at the top. And then peanuts is our favorite nut. Is anyone allergic to peanuts here? 1 person. I'll make sure not to put peanuts in yours. So 1 serving. Is anyone allergic to seafood here? Okay, one dish. Okay, I'll keep that in mind when I run to the back. So depending on which week it is, my mum would make this dish sometimes with chicken, sometimes with prawns, sometimes with both. And if you want to cater for a party, it makes a really easy entree that you can give out to your guests. So a little bit of the peanuts. To make the sauce, I usually use one of these at home, but just to demonstrate, I'll use a glass. The reason I use one of these is you can just put your finger there and just give it a good shake. There's no mixing involved. But essentially, it's 1 part honey. I was explaining to my mum, how do I make Vietnamese healthy? And she's like, it's already healthy. So 1 part honey. And the reason I say part, there's a recipe in the booklet with all the measurements for 2 or 3 people, but the reason I say part is depending on your family, you can just extend it to have bigger amounts. Then lime juice. This is like the trickiest part of the demo. Squeezing lime juice in front of you. Living in Gold Coast is quite easy because the weather is quite warm, but coming from Melbourne, the honey is always really hard. So I usually put it in the microwave for a couple of seconds just to make it dissolved. So the idea of using something transparent is that you can see the level. So you're going to use whatever honey it is, you're going to try use 3 times as much lime. And then after we do that, I'm still having to dissolve it. I feel like I'm making an experiment. Okay, so once the honey is dissolved, you can see clearly how much is in there, and you can add the exact same amount of fish sauce. So one of my friends that doesn't really cook, she actually has a glass with permanent textures of ratios. So you eyeball it. If it's there, you're going to go twice as high, same amount. So that's twice as much as there was before. So a little bit of honey, then 3 times as much juice, same amount of fish sauce, and then 3 times as much water. So that 1, 2, 3. So I'll put my finger there, I'll hold the glass there, and I'll just pour it in. And there's my dressing. You can always add chili to it if you want. You don't have to. And if you really like it spicy, I recommend using the little Thai chilies. Those really give you a kick. Now, quiz time before I pour the sauce in. Who's good at Trivia Pursuit here? One person in the back. So the really cool thing about Vietnamese dishes is that you can dress it with any type of herbs you like, and they smell really different. So I'm going to put a little bit of, does anyone know what this one is? Yeah, coriander. And as Jamie Oliver says, it's always best to use your fingers so that you really get all the flavors out of your herbs. This is my favorite Vietnamese herb. Does anybody know what this one is? Okay, I'm going to pass it around after I use some of it. Have a smell. What do you think it is? You'll probably think that it's familiar. You can pass it around. Does it smell familiar? Yes, that's Vietnamese basil. So it's very similar to Italian basil, but it has a little bit more of a kick. So that's my favorite herb because I grew up in Italy, so I can translate the dishes over quite easily. Now, does anybody know what this one is? Okay, I'm going to pass this one around as well. I don't use a lot of this because I have small, very picky kids, and their palate is a lot more sensitive than ours. This is Vietnamese mint. It is nothing like our mint. It's very, very, very pungent, but it's very high in antioxidants as well. So I would mix this salad. I can make this the night before my guests come. And then to serve it up, when everybody arrives at my house, I will pop them ready in the fridge that morning. And I'll place the chicken on top. Some more peanuts. And a little bit more of the fish sauce. But if I was to make this for myself at home in front of the TV, I would just eat it off the bowl. That's what normally happens. Yeah. So a very light dish. So I'm going to run to the back now, and yeah, I hope you guys enjoy it. Thank you. Do I have questions? Yes.
What would you use in place of fish sauce if you're vegetarian?
You can use soy sauce instead of fish sauce. There's like Kikkoman soy sauce. I think that one doesn't have any. It's gluten-free and it doesn't have any meat products in there. Yeah. And you wouldn't dilute it the same way. You would put it on top, drizzle on top until it's salty enough. And you use more vinegar to make it more tangy because fish sauce has that kind of tangy side of flavor. Yeah. No worries. I hope you enjoyed it. I'll come back with all the dishes for you to try.